Um, well, welcome everybody to the inaugural first ever Truett Church Network webinar. We've been wanting to do some of these things for some time, but just have had too many other things going. But one of the challenges disguised as opportunities of pandemic is you have time to try things you didn't have time to try before. And being all at home and out of the office and canceling tons of stuff forces us into innovation, which is terrifying and exciting all at the same time. We're going to do these just about every day, one way or the other. I will probably host 2 or 3 a week for the coming few weeks. We'll be partnering with Center for Healthy Churches to do some of these as well. We'll be pushing others that we know about to just get you resources, because we're all facing challenges, leadership challenges, discipleship challenges, worship challenges, pastoral challenges during this time that might resemble some things we faced before. And in some ways, because of just the scope of it and the broad, basically global nature of it at this point, are pretty unprecedented for a lot of us, which requires some new skills and learning some old skills. And as we're talking about today, all of us pivoting in some important ways. So Matt and I are going to visit a little bit. As I said, if you're just getting on, we'll have questions at the end. So if you want to, in the comment section on Facebook or on Zoom, feel free to type your questions in, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end. Well, I met Matt very early on in my tenure at Truett, and he was finishing up his degree there. Matt is the co-founder of Chemistry Staffing. He served as an executive pastor in multiple roles, done many things in ministry, an entrepreneurial speaker or thinker and minister. I don't know if you're an entrepreneurial speaker. I don't think that's a thing, but you're an entrepreneurial thinker. When I want to hear someone think of that seems ahead of the curves I participate in ministry, I often call Matt, and he's just got great insight. And we had a good conversation last week about what churches are doing and how they're doing it well. And thankful for Matt could be with us today. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, how this season is affecting you, and what Chemistry Staffing does.
Yeah, so like Matt said, I've served as executive pastor in a couple of different churches now. Was a youth pastor for 8 years before I got too old for that, and then was a recent graduate of Truett. I kind of went back later in life, graduated with an MDiv and an MBA in 2017. But towards the end of my time at Truett, my partner and I, Todd Rhodes, we launched Chemistry Staffing as an organization that comes alongside churches, helps them find pastors, helps them find different ministers, especially areas. And we've done it virtually to be able to come alongside churches of all sizes. And so a big part of what we do and what we work with, especially in this season, it seems like over the last 2 weeks, is we've been walking with some churches with how do we virtual and remote working now, and this is kind of forced on us. So we're doing a lot of coaching work and a lot of kind of helping churches figure out, okay, so as good as Dr. Creech was, he is still Dr. Creech, sorry. As good as Dr. Creech is, he probably has not talked about how to do ministry when you're shut down. And so we're kind of just walking alongside churches, helping them think, what does it look like to live stream? What does it look like to work remotely? How do we care for our people in this season? And so that's a lot of what our work has been over the last 10 days. So.
Yeah, we didn't really offer that class on pandemics and pastoring through pandemic 101. That didn't quite make the curriculum cut.
I don't understand why.
Golly. Well, I mean, we all have those comments about things we wish we would have learned in seminary, but some things you just can't prepare for. And I mean, even 2 weeks ago, how quickly the world changes, right? What we would have thought that Waco, well, now effectively Waco's on shutdown. Most of Texas is. It's just a new world has been thrust upon us quick. So just to kind of kick off our discussion, and we can take it any different direction. What are the big challenges that we're all facing right now that may be opportunities in disguise? I think a lot of us think, all of the challenges, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And we can become perhaps defeatist. But where do you see gospel ministry opportunities in the midst of this pandemic?
Um, so what you need to know about me, I guess, is I tend to see the cup is half full or overflowing or something like that. So I recognize that we're in a serious season and there's a lot going on that we need to be aware of, and it's a big deal. That said, I also see us having some really significant opportunities to do ministry in ways that we haven't before. And so, we all of a sudden we can't gather together. And a lot of churches are being forced into streaming services or rethinking what what ministry looks like when you can't come to a physical building, or how do we better use our internet, our web presence, or our social channels to be able to do gospel ministry. So I think there's a huge opportunity there to think through, how do we better steward what we have, the gifts that we have when it comes to the internet,
Yeah.
and people that we have on our team that have technical abilities. How do we better steward and better unleash those gifts moving forward? How do we, one of the things that we see, and stop me if I'm kind of going in
No,
a
it's
bad
good.
direction. One of the things that we see, having constant conversations with a lot of church planners, but also churches, established churches in large buildings is, is buildings can be cumbersome on doing ministry. And so right now we have an opportunity to think through what it looks like to do ministry in a way that's not building dependent
Mm.
and not building centered. And so we've got the freedom to be able to do that. I mean, we are kind of forced into a season of forced innovation, ways of rethinking how we do church. Honestly, this can be one of the cool things of this is we've got a sandbox, right?
Yeah.
This is unprecedented in this country, especially, but we have the ability to go and say, go and start to change things in ways that we typically don't have the ability to do when we're week in and week out of the same place, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the beauty of that too is nobody knows what it's supposed to look like. When we didn't talk about this in seminary, most churches don't talk about this at board meetings. Most of the people that really are change adverse, I mean, churches, we don't tend to do change well, right? But they don't have a picture of what ministry is supposed to look like now. And so, we have the ability to really rethink some things. And I think we're going to have, I'm guessing a minimum of 90 days
Yeah.
to really start to experiment and play and figure out, what can ministry look like if the trappings that we've been kind of had all these years were no longer on us. So I don't know if that helps, if there's ways that places we can dig into on that, or.
Well, it's interesting. I think I just think yesterday what I saw on Facebook, I saw just regular streamed worship, fairly standard. I saw drive-through church where churches drove through and had prayer. I saw like drive-in church. One church in Kaufman, Texas, filled the parking lot in like a drive-in movie. You saw more like fireside chats. You saw all these different, where I think everybody is breaking down what does it mean to worship, what is discipleship, and how do people grow. And given what we have, it's kind of like that scene in Apollo 13 where they've got to dumps all the stuff on the table and says we've got to fit this into that. Here's what we want, and there's a lot of fun in that, but a lot of fear, right, and anxiety depending on your personality and your church and the capabilities and all that.
Absolutely. I was talking to a church planner I know earlier today, and they've been thinking for a while, why do we do 3 songs and then a sermon?
Yeah.
A lot of the crowd that they're reaching out to, a lot of the crowd that they're attracting have absolutely no church background. They don't know what to expect when they walk in the doors. They're looking for something a little bit different. And they're like, we've been asking ourselves probably for 6 months, why do we need to do 3 songs and then the sermon? Maybe for our crowd, this would look better if we had breakfast and we had a more discussion-based sermon, and then maybe we sang a little bit afterwards. And just totally deconstruct and reconstruct church and what discipleship looks like in that context. And he's like, you know what? We've got a minimum, and they're in Maryland, and Maryland just shut down, right? All non-essentials are down, and they're pretty close to being shelter in place. What does this look like for us to kind of play with this now that we're doing digital church, so
Yeah.
that on the other side, maybe we just do church in living room over breakfast and do that kind of thing, save the facility costs, because they're
Yeah.
planning spending like $600 a week on a school, and really kind of rethinking what it be able to reach people in their context and in their community in a way that is way different than what anybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so as you're visiting with churches and coaching pastors, and I know you're visiting with people all over the country in a variety of different denominational settings, size, worship, I mean, you kind of cover a pretty wide gambit. What are you seeing as some of the what qualities of leaders or needs of leaders to thrive during this time?
Yeah. I think that the thing for me is just having a non-anxious presence, right? So much of what we see, and I've done, we've been doing a series of devotionals at the church where I serve. They're just dropping, 5-minute daily devotions that are put out for, by people in the congregation for the rest of the congregation. One of the major things is just, hey, we are in an anxious time,
Yeah.
right? We're in a season where, if you go and watch any cable news or anything like that, I mean, it is just flat out anxiety. And so one of the things of to lead well in this season is to have that non-anxious presence and just be completely different from what people are seeing around, right? So much of what our work is as pastors is kind of speaking into people in the midst of crisis, welcome to it. And for us to be able to bring peace and bring calm and be Jesus to them requires us to kind of take the deep breath and be calm and really, have that non-anxious side to ourselves. I think part of where that comes from, I mean, is being grounded, right? Continuing to develop your own spiritual life, tending to your own spiritual garden through this season. But I think there's also a piece of this where it's kind of managing that tension of understanding what is it that you can control, things that you can definitely control, what's outside of your control. What are the things that you maybe should be concerned about, but you can't control? So be aware of what's going on, but also be aware that there are certain things that you're able to control, and those you do your best with, but hold it loosely enough. And so part of this is, hey, we're in unprecedented times, right? Hold this loosely so that you're able to be non-anxious when your people need you. You're going to have people that are under the weather, that are worried. Is this coronavirus? You're going to have people that are saying, hey, look, I can't come out because I'm immune compromised, and we're running food. We've been out of toilet paper 6 weeks already. Now it's started to get serious. And so, can you bring that non-anxious presence into that and be able to walk with them through that season? Is that what you're asking, you think?
No, yeah, that's good. So often we want leadership skills or 5 characteristics of a crisis leader or something. And the answer almost always goes back to, doesn't it, to who are you? What is God doing in your life? How are you managing your feelings and reflecting on this? And can you move forward in this? And so often it does. I think for the early adopters, which I think I probably am, this is kind of a dream. You're like, oh my gosh, we get to play in the sandbox, and this is great. But I'm probably, early 4 or 5% on that. The rest of the curve is feeling so many different things. And so knowing kind of where you are on that adoption curve of change and saying, okay, either I need to calm down, right? Or if I'm way back, crisis is going to force me to make decisions quickly, and I've got to find a way to speed myself up a little bit, and my processes are going to change. And so that change, that speed of change, I guess, has changed right now, which is disorienting for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I heard somebody talk about how they had their sermon ready on Thursday, ready to push out to everybody for Sunday. And they ended up having to go back and redo it on Friday, and then had to go back and redo it again on Saturday. And, then had to do it again on Saturday night just because of things keep changing over and over again. And so there's that flexibility piece to this. We need to be able to, it only comes out of the overflow of what, like you were saying, what God has already, what's already happening in us. But, that flexibility only comes when we're as, close to a peace as possible to be in these types of situations. So, yeah.
That's good. Anybody that has questions and y'all want to put those up, y'all are welcome to ask. Matt and I have some other things to go on. What are some examples of churches that you see, Matt, doing just some excellent work right now?
I think there's several. Okay, so I think there's a lot of churches that are really kind of linked to this, and I won't name names, but what I will do is just kind of say, hey, here's the pattern we're doing. Some of the churches that are, shift fly and all of a sudden becoming a digital church without ever having done this before, have a pretty good understanding of who they are. Okay, so one of two things tends to happen, in churches when all of a sudden we got to go strictly digital, right? They either try to be, Saddleback, North Point, name mega church that has, a production budget that's, more than, most of our annual salaries, right? So that's one thing that people do. Or the other thing that they try to do is just kind of do, that same service that they do week in, week out. Him, pass the plate. It's kind of awkward when there's nobody in the building. Do the special and the announcements and all that kind of stuff, and do that. So those are the two things that a lot of churches have started to do. I think the church that have done this well have realized, you know what, this is a totally different medium, and we don't need to do this like, big church. We don't need to do this, the same thing that we always do. And so I've watched as some churches kind of do more of a fireside chat type of experience, where it's in somebody's living room, and the lighting is okay, the sound quality is done well, and it's just more of a conversational type of experience. So as you do this needs to feel more like FaceTime or even a Zoom call than it does a TV broadcast. So this is a much more personal, intimate medium. It's more of a cell phone almost cell phone call than it is pushing this out to broadcast TV. And so, churches that are aware of who they are and the feel that they've got, and are making this conversational and kind of shifting to that instead of, hey, let's do what we always do. Or I think they're doing it well. I think they're when it comes to worship, I think they're thinking through it in similar ways. So I was talking with my partner, Todd, about this earlier. I think the churches that seem to be doing this well have more of a vibe of like a tiny desk concert. I don't know if you've seen those on NPR. Or AV Club used to do, and I don't know if they still do, a series of just concerts in like this tiny room. And so it's, you probably only need one or two people in there because of social distancing and stuff, but it's a more, maybe one song, because, and it's done well in a small, more intimate environment. And it just feels a whole lot better than having, 7 people spread across, the stage with, 6 feet in between them all. And it's so I think that's a big part of the churches that are doing this well, at least when it comes to the worship type piece. I think there's the ones that are getting this. So, and the other thing that the churches that are doing this well are realizing that they need to really be intentional about the communication that they're having, and leverage the technology available to be able to do that. And so I mentioned the church that I'm at, we're just doing, daily short hitter devotionals. Hey, the church is Harvest. It's, hey, Harvest, here's what I'm hearing God say today, or those types of things, just real quick hitters, launching small groups via Zoom that way. But kind of learning the technology to be able to do that. So
that's good. That's very good. Church Unplugged. I mean, seems kind of to be a theme a little bit of kind of, remember MTV's through the old Unplugged sets where those were amazing. Tangent for another day. We'll do our MTV reviews another time.
I think you're dating yourself, but yeah.
Andrew Bowles, who is his the missions and youth minister and other things at First Baptist Oklahoma City, said, let me hand up to it here. So talking about personal, intimate uses of Facebook Live, how often do you, or similar platforms, what about like the frequency of pushing content? Just typical Sunday or Wednesday? You're talking about little snippets as well, kind of macro pushes, micro pushes. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the pacing really depends on your crowd. That's a consultant answer. I know, it depends. But I think really what it is, what you kind of want to think through is what's appropriate for your crowd. And so I think Facebook Live is great. I think in this season, to be able to consistently communicate, the message not only of the gospel, but also, what it is that you're trying to pour into your people through this season. Facebook, a daily Facebook Live conversation, great. Short little, videos that you push out, maybe once or twice a week, an email blast that just kind of goes out to people, but it's personal. It really kind of communicates, hey, this is what I'm wrestling through, gives people an opportunity to engage a little bit more deeply, whether that's through an online small group, or even to have people kind of ping back and email back, or push people to text conversations. There's a lot of opportunities, and I don't think I think the beauty of this is that we don't have to think just in that Sunday Wednesday schedule. I think we've got a lot of people that are they're bored out of their mind. The sports are canceled. Who knows when baseball is going to start? Hockey's done, and I'm irritated about that because the Capitals are starting to look good again. We've got a lot of people with a ton of time on their hands, and the ability to kind of be able to push or content out that's helpful, that's compelling, and honestly, it's short. It's amazing. So I hope that helps.
No, yeah, that's very good. That's very good. I'm looking through some other ones. John asks, how would a more extensive quarantine further limit a church's ability to put out live services? In that situation, how can we still minister online if we can't live stream? So I guess if we couldn't get together and live stream something, what does online ministry look like? That's an interesting. Maybe the answer is something like fireside chats or something like that. What do you think?
Well, and I think part of this is, the beauty of live stream is it doesn't have to look like it always used to look. And so you can live stream with a cell phone.
Yeah.
Or if you have a good, camera, you can live stream off of that. And you've got the technologies out there that you can do it for free. Now, I know Church Online, I think they added like 12,000 churches to the platform last week. And so they had a little bit of a struggle and crashed the platform for a little bit, but it's free, and Life Church puts it out. And so, you just need to have have the ability to be able to do the recording and that kind of thing. Another thing to think about, and just because we say live stream doesn't necessarily mean that the service has to be live. You record, the night before, put it together, and then push it out, and that can be a distributed process, right? And you can push different pieces to different people on your team and have them put it together, and then be able to upload it on the platform or drop it into YouTube, or whatever. And so if that's kind of what you're looking to do, I think the ability to be able to live stream, as long as we're not looking to do church as normal, that's when it gets a little bit of a struggle. As long as we're open to kind of exploring different ways of doing this, I think we have the potential, as long as the internet's up. And if the internet goes down, man, I'm going to be bored.
We're going Lord of the Flies real quick if internet goes down in the Holmeyer household. I think Jack just put up the link to Church Online platform for those that might be interested in that there in the chat notes. I know our church runs 300-ish or so on a given morning, and it's been interesting the last 2 weeks. We've done the fireside chat model, but several have commented we take a lot of time for prayer. Our pastor, Mary Alice, asks for different people to respond in the chat function of Facebook Live, and several have commented they feel like they know more that's what's going on in the life of the people of the church in that venue, that format, than were we live together in church, because we're sharing. And so one of those problems that kind of becomes an opportunity, I think it will change when we all get back together. Hey, that's going to be joyful, but it's also going to be a little different. I mean, we'll know each other a little better.
Yeah.
Final question, Matt. What are we going to do if we can't meet for Easter? Any thoughts on Easter productions, Easter services, if we're still doing
I think
weeks from now?
we just throw in the towel and quit. Now, I'm telling the churches that I work with, you better be planning on not meeting for Easter.
Yeah.
Right. I think that this is a minimum of 90 days that we're going to be shut down as churches. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know that I am. It could be longer than 90 days. Who knows? So if you're not thinking through what Easter looks like, being, strictly digital, you need to be thinking through. So, different churches, again, are going to do this different ways. There might be some churches doing drive-in, though I don't know regulations when we're doing shelter in place will affect that. What you can be doing now, though, is we've got, 2 weeks? Is that
3? Yeah, 3. Yeah.
2.5, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
A little bit of time. You're able to, start being creative and looking for different elements. The beauty of cell phones, right? Everybody's got a video camera. Everybody has the ability to do now, the quality of what some people are going to do is going to be better than others, right? But everybody's got the ability to film and distribute content. And if we're being creative and want to be able to find different ways to involve different people into a service, being able to ask people to whether it's read scripture, or perhaps share something, whatever that looks like, we've got the ability to distribute that and invite people to take part in a different way, right? And so got the ability to start working on that. There's a lot of freelancers right now that are, videographers, that kind of thing, that will have some time to be able to do some video editing to create something that's a little bit different, a little bit than what typically happens. And the quality for that is definitely there. I think we also have the ability to really think through what family-based services could look like. Okay.
Yeah.
So Easter's gonna happen, and at some point, somebody's gonna, people are gonna be eating ham or whatever, and we have the ability, and we've got a few weeks to be able to put together what does an Easter conversation around dinner look like for a family?
Mm-hmm.
How do we tell the story of Easter in a way maybe new to people, because typically we're all about Sunday morning experience, but because we don't have that, how do we discuss Easter? How do we have our parents? How do we equip parents to be able to share, what the significance of this to their kids in ways that, because of so much of our age and divided ministry, they really haven't had to do in the past. Yeah. So part of what we've been doing is finding ways to equip and prepare families to be able to really lean into this in ways that we're just not used to. So,
well, and what does it look like to practice resurrection in neighborhoods that we're walking our dogs, we're walking with our kids, things like that. Our neighbors are as well. What are ways we can do that from 6 feet away that put it on us, that we are embodying resurrection and witness in our neighborhoods?
And that's one of the beautiful things about technology right now. So, I don't know how many of you guys, I typically, avoid next door like the plague, and then try to avoid, neighborhood and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Because, a lot of times it's just, this person isn't cleaning up after their dog, or that person's doing this, that kind of stuff. And it gets a little snitty. But I think now, what I've been watching, and there's a couple of us that, pastors in our neighborhood, that we've been able to leverage that to have some conversations, but also to be able to resource people. And so being able to do that is, and being able to kind of share stories, or also be able to network people and get people the help that they need. You talk a message of East, and like, holy crow, talk about being able to really kind of reshape the neighborhood.
Yeah.
One of the things that we need to remember through this, and this isn't what you asked, but we're going there anyhow. One of the things that you need to remember is that not only is this a new experience for you, but this is a new experience for everybody in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
People with faith, people without faith, and there's a lot of people that are going to be asking huge questions. And the way that we walk through this, the way that we make ourselves available, and the way, more importantly, the way they're equipping our people to be able to have those conversations, is going to some significant impact on the people that we're walking through this together with. And so taking the opportunity to be able to really leverage technology to be able to speak into the lives of people that, whether they're in our congregation or not,
Yeah.
talk about a way to change significantly, our neighborhood and our culture.
Man, that's exciting. Yeah, that's where you go, all right, there's opportunities here.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you for your time with us, man. I want to honor our time. Jack posted a link to Clever Guys Media in the comments. Clever Guys is based out of Waco. In fact, the guy who runs it is just a half block. We're in the same neighborhood. We're talking about some of this. They do great streaming video help services. They're some of the best I know that are scalable to help. If you're interested in some stepping up your game and what you're doing a little bit, they're a good one to go to. Just as one that we trust and know. Colin Witt is the name of the guy who runs it, and he's great. Matt and I were visiting earlier, and chemistry staffing just does a lot of great work. If anyone is interested in participating in a 90-day coaching cohort, essentially, that would meet every couple of weeks with a certified coach or different people in chemistry staffing's orbit, just about this conversation. How are we navigating this? How are we leading effectively? Chemistry staffing has offered that to us as an opportunity for you to do. So if you or someone someone maybe a key person on your staff would be interested in being a part of one of these cohorts that'll be launching soon, you can either comment on Facebook, PM me. You have my email. Many of you have my my number to text me. But certainly you can PM me through Facebook if you don't have anything else, and we'll get you signed up for that. So if anyone would be interested. And then chemistry will also be putting out chemistry staffing other webinars throughout the week that we'll be tagging on our Facebook page. Matt, you want to say a little bit about those? Yeah,
so we're doing a series of webinars. We're calling them Now What, because we're trying to figure out now what. And we'll be talking about how churches are adapting to just our new reality. And so this week, it's 11 Eastern, which means 10 Central, right?
Got it.
I can do math. We're going to be talking about how to shift from a a normal church setting to a remote working situation. So we created chemistry intentionally to be a virtual first company. And so our team is distributed all across the country. There's 21 of us. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about what we've learned about working virtually, how to do it well, how not to make the mistakes that we made early on, and just kind of walk away with some tips and tricks to be able to pull this off in this season. And so the website is chemistry.com/virtual, and you can get more details there.
All right. Well, we have been recording this. We'll put it up on the webpage later as well. Thank you all for joining us, those that are on Facebook, those that are here on Zoom. Matt, thanks again for your time and your work. And you can find Matt at chemistrystaffing.com. Should any of you be interested in more of their services, they're one we trust and appreciate their work. But thanks, buddy.
Hey, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we'll be back at 3 with Dr. Creech talking about crisis leadership and the differences between managing a crisis and leading through a crisis. So hope to see some of you tomorrow. Have a good day.